Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back once again to Today in African History with Baba Shaka. I'm Baba Shaka, and today is June 15th, 2021. Yes, we are halfway through the self proclaimed International African Scientists and Inventors Month. And today, inshallah, we're going to look at the man who gave us the blood bank. A pioneering African medical researcher in America, Dr. Charles R. Drew made some groundbreaking discoveries in the storage and processing of blood for transfusions. He also managed two of the largest blood banks during World War II. Charles Drew grew up in Washington, D.C. as the eldest son of a carpet layer. In his youth, young Drew showed great athletic talent. He won several medals for swimming in his elementary years and later branched out to football, basketball, and other sports. After graduating from Dunbar High School in 1922, Drew went to Amherst College on his sports scholarship. There, he distinguished himself on the track and football teams. Charles Drew completed his bachelor's degree at Amherst in 1926, but didn't have enough money to pursue his dream of attending medical school. He worked as a biology instructor and coach for Morgan College, which is now Morgan State University, one of our HBCUs, in Baltimore for 2 years. In 1928, he applied to medical schools and enrolled at McGill University up in Montreal, Canada. At McGill University, Charles Drew quickly proved to be a top student. He won a prize for neuroanatomy and was a member of the Alpha Omega Alpha, a medical honor society. Now, graduating in 1933, Dr. Drew was second in his class and earned both Doctor of Medicine and Master of Surgery degrees. He did his internship and residency at the Royal Victoria Hospital and the Montreal General Hospital. And during this time, Dr. Drew studied with Dr. John Beatty, and they examined problems and issues regarding blood transfusion. Now, after his father's death, Dr. Drew returned to the United States and he became an instructor at Howard University's medical school in 1935. The following year, he did a surgery residence at Freedman's Hospital in Washington, D.C., in addition to his work at the university. In 1938, Dr. Drew received a Rockefeller Fellowship to study at Columbia University up in New York and trained at the Presbyterian Hospital there. There, he continued his exploration of blood-related matters with John Scudder. Dr. Drew developed a method for processing and preserving blood plasma, or blood without cells. See, plasma lasts much longer than whole blood, making it possible to be stored or quote-unquote banked for longer periods of time. He discovered that the plasma could be dried and then reconstituted when needed. His research served as the basis for his doctorate thesis, Banked Blood, and he received his doctorate degree, his second, in 1940. Dr. Drew became the first African in America to earn this degree from Columbia University. As World War II raged in Europe, Dr. Drew was asked to head up a special medical effort known as, quote-unquote, Blood for Britain. He organized the collection and processing of blood plasma from several New York hospitals and the shipment of these life-saving materials overseas to treat casualties in the war. According to one report, Dr. Drew helped collect roughly 14,500 pints of plasma. In 1941, Dr. Drew spearheaded another blood bank effort, this time for the American Red Cross. He worked on developing a blood bank to be used for the U.S. military personnel. But not long into his tenure there, Dr. Drew became frustrated with the military's request for segregating the blood donated by Africans in America. At first, the military did not even want to use blood from Africans in America, but they later said it could only be used for African soldiers in America. Dr. Drew was outraged by this racist policy, as well as he should have been, and resigned his post only after a few months. Now, after creating two of the first blood banks, Dr. Drew returned to Howard University in 1941. He served as a professor there, heading up the university's Department of Surgery. He also became the chief surgeon at the Freedmen's Hospital. Later that year, he became the first African examiner for the American Board of Surgery. In 1944, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, honored Dr. Drew with its 1943 Spingarn Medal for, quote, the highest and noblest achievement, unquote, by an African American during the preceding year or years, unquote. The award was given in recognition of Dr. Drew's blood plasma collection and distribution efforts. Now, for the final years of his life, Dr. Drew remained an active and highly regarded medical professional. He continued to serve as the chief surgeon at Freedmen's Hospital and a professor at Howard University. On April 1st, 1950, Dr. Drew and three other physicians attended a medical conference at the Tuskegee Institute, another of our HBCUs down in Alabama. Dr. Drew was behind the wheel when his vehicle crashed near Burlington, North Carolina. His passengers survived, but unfortunately, Dr. Drew succumbed to his injuries. He left behind his wife, Minnie, and their four children. Now, before we continue, I will take this time to address the legend of Dr. Drew's death. According to Whitney Young, the then executive director of the National Urban League, in a statement to the Amsterdam News in 1964, the story went like this. It happened one April day while he, Dr. Drew, and three other doctors were driving to attend a medical conference at a southern university, Tuskegee. Near Burlington, North Carolina, their automobile swerved to avoid an object in the road. Dr. Drew was critically injured and began to lose blood rapidly. His colleagues flagged down a passing car and rushed him to the nearest hospital. At the door, he was turned away. Why? Because it was a whites-only institution. By the time he was taken to a nearby quote-unquote colored hospital, Dr. Charles Drew, the man who developed the theory of blood plasma and pioneered the blood bank, had bled to death. His death highlighted the racial segregation which then existed in most southern hospitals and still clings to many today. But according to the North Carolina Museum of History, this well-known legend of Charles Drew's death never happened. None of Dr. Drew's companions in the car remember swerving to avoid something in the road. Dr. Drew arrived at the hospital in an ambulance. Alamance County General Hospital doctors administered plasma to Dr. Drew in addition to giving other emergency treatment. Dr. Drew did not die from loss of blood alone. The death certificate listed the conditions leading to his death as, quote, brain injury, internal hemorrhages, lung and multiple extremities injuries, unquote. Alamance County General Hospital, though it segregated black and white patients, was not a whites-only institution and did not refuse Dr. Drew treatment. Now, that's according to the North Carolina Museum of History. Now, let's look at what is undoubtedly true about the legend. One, Dr. Drew lived and died during the era of segregation, when African Southerners in America endured separate and unequal public facilities, schools, libraries, restaurants, theaters, hotels, waiting rooms, restrooms, even hospitals, separated whites and blacks. Some people did die after being refused care at segregated hospitals. A few months after Dr. Drew's death, Maltheus Avery, a World War II veteran and student at the Agricultural and Technical College of North Carolina, which is now North Carolina A&T State University in Greensboro, go Aggies, also had a car accident in Alamance County. He was sent to the same hospital as Dr. Drew, where he was stabilized and sent on to Duke Hospital in Durham, which could better care for his injuries. But Duke's beds designated for Africans in America were full, so the hospital sent him on to Lincoln Hospital, which served the black population. Avery died shortly after arriving at Lincoln, and his death set off a nationwide scandal. Dr. Drew's legend grew out of the social realities of his time. That a black pioneer in blood plasma research could bleed to death did not surprise many Africans in these here yet to be United States who constantly experienced the pain of segregation. Though factually ambiguous, and I'll let you rely on your own research, the Drew story spoke to a profound truth. Legal segregation is gone, but it has not been forgotten, as continued tellings of this legend indicate. Efforts by Dr. Drew's family, the American Red Cross, and professional historians to refute the legend have met with little success. Denials of a story's truth are rarely as powerful as the legend itself. Dr. Drew was only 45 years old at the time of his death, and it is remarkable how much he was able to accomplish in such a limited amount of time. As the Reverend Jerry Moore said at Dr. Drew's funeral, Drew had, quote, a life which crowds into a handful of years, significance so great, men will never be able to forget it, unquote. Since his passing, Dr. Drew has received countless posthumous honors. He was featured in the United States Postal Service Great American Stamp Series in 1981, and his name appears on educational institutions across the country. Every day, millions of people around the world are ill or injured, and as a result, are in desperate need of blood. Now, I do not work for the Red Cross or any such organizations, nor am I being compensated for what I'm about to say. See, I'm a regular blood donor because you never know when you or someone whom you love may be in need of a blood transfusion. So, I encourage each and every one of you to take some time out of your busy schedule and become a blood donor. You may be responsible for saving someone's life, inshallah. A mighty big thank you to all of our subscribers who continue to support us. To those of you who have not yet subscribed, we invite you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button just below the screen there and lend us your much needed support. Please like and leave a comment down in the comment section below. But most importantly, please share, especially with the young amongst us, because as you and I both know, this material is not taught in our schools. So, until tomorrow, inshallah, this is Baba Shaka with Today in African History. Masala.